Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I'm going to finish up the fabrication on this piece here that I've been working on. Here it is finished, but for those of you that might not have seen last week's episode, I make this entire section from here over, and I made this brace as well. And I've only been doing this stuff for about a month, so there's that. But yeah, let's jump into it. Alright guys, you can see that my first fab repair is coming along nicely. Where I was welding in that new piece, which is this piece over here, was welded in down along here. I just threw on some self-etch primer and went through the steps of coating this just to protect it for now. But this piece is welded in and that bracket runs back behind here. I've turned my attention now to creating this inner piece, which I cut these pieces out in the last episode. This piece I made by scoring the metal and bending, because this one was reasonably simple. This one's a little more complex, so I decided to cut the pieces out individually. Again, I cover that in the previous episode. What I'm about to do for making this piece is I have this piece lined up and this piece clamped in so that I know that the new section here lines up and this section lines up. What I'm going to do is put tacks in here. Then I'm going to take this out and weld these two pieces so that I know that these angles line up correctly. The reason I'm not going to tack in this piece or this piece yet is I want to be able to get the grinder in here, all along here, to grind down my welds nice and smooth. Then I will put this back in and I will probably tack this piece in. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to do that so that I'm just going to have to try to weld this as nicely as possible, because I'm not really going to be able to get in here to weld or to grind these welds. And I will also, while this piece is out, probably score this and bend it so that I can start to work that piece in. One thing to keep in mind is I just checked, and my first MIG welding attempt that I put up was only a month ago. So I'm incredibly happy with my progress thus far. Anybody that hasn't welded, I would say the important thing is patience. Patience and welding time. You have to weld, trial and error, figure out what works and what doesn't work. But with enough practice and patience, I mean, I'm okay. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm getting there, and it's fun. So anyway, let's tack these pieces in and get working on this piece. All right, so that's probably all I'm really gonna have to do to hold these angles correctly. Now that that's done, I can take this out and we can go ahead, tack this, strengthen it, do all that stuff. Then we'll pop it back in, get this one lined up, do the same with this one. Okay, so here's the piece. Looks pretty good. Other side, already welded that, ground it down. In hindsight, when I made my template, I should have made this at least all one piece and tried to bend this, because I just invested a lot of time welding and grinding down. But I don't mind, because I already said I've found that grinding welds is definitely an art in itself. So I'm getting practice doing that, and you know, the next time I make a piece like this, I'm gonna know a better way to approach it. So I'm not worried about it. Still time in the garage, it doesn't bother me. But we'll throw this back in, and I think I'm gonna tackle the piece that goes over here next. The thing I did before we put this back up on the car is I went and scored this twice along here to make this lip easier to round off. And then I also scored this section here. And then I also scored this section here which sits on the car like this, and then this folds down. I assume just to give it some strength. But let's go ahead and bend this. Start bending it anyway, so that, because we know that this corner does have to be rounded. All right, so check this out. That worked out pretty good. Obviously, it's not perfect. This lines up well. There's a little bit of a hump here I have to address, but for the most part, this is looking pretty good. This will get spot welded down onto this area that I repaired, but I think we're about ready to lay in the next piece and just keep building on this. So that's what happens when you act stupid. I tried to run a nice beat up along here because I was impatient, and I just burned through the whole way. And basically I'm an idiot. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weld this from the backside to fill these gaps in, and then never do that again. That's frustrating. I knew better, but sometimes I'm convinced that I just will not learn until I actually do the damage and have to face the repercussions. That's just part of the learning process though. And I worked really hard on this piece so far, and I don't think I'm gonna make that mistake again. But I got confident and thought that I could get her done, and I gave myself an education. I'm about to get a whole lot of practice filling gaps anyway, so I guess that's the silver lining. So I got the last piece fit and put in for this evening. I'm gonna go ahead, tack these in, and get started on rounding this off and finishing this piece off. All right, there it is. Not too bad. I mean, it's by no means amazing. I mean, it's a reasonably complex piece. And I mean, it looks pretty good. It's not perfect, like I said, but obviously I have some figuring out to do to clean up these corners. But for now, I can get this in the car, weld it in, and that section of the trunk will be repaired. And we can move on to the other side. That'll work. Not bad for my first fabrication project. New night, guys, and I ran out today and picked up a couple burr bits here to try and grind down my corners here. These aren't gonna bother me too much, because you're really not going to see these on the car when they're finished. At least these ones down here. The gas tank's going to be along here, but I do want to make it look nice. So I'm going to put a little time into trying these bits to see if I can't clean these corners up a bit. Cleaned it up some, not too bad, but I'm not going to spend any more time on this just because there's far more important things to be doing on this car. And this isn't really an area that's going to be visible. So I have this coated to protect it. And obviously I don't want to weld to that. So I just laid this in here and then took a nail and scratched and marked where all my welds are going to go. I'm going to sand those off and get this laid in. That way I'm welding clean metal to clean metal. starting to get blended in, grinding down the welds. Keep in mind this whole thing will get pushed down in these areas so I can spot weld it, but I don't want to do that quite yet. I want to get this blended in and make sure everything is a little bit smoother and this stuff is lining up well before I tack that in place for good. Alright guys, here's where we're at with some welding and grinding. It's by no means perfect, but you know, I just started welding and fabricating a month ago, so I'm happy with that. Everything's solid. We got our spot welds in. I gotta clean that up. This is all very solid and good. Got a lot of cleaning up to do up here yet, but my goal was to get all of this as smooth and clean as possible with weld, just to make sure that this entire area is strong, because after all, I mean, the gas tank will be sitting in this, so I want this to be strong. But I wanted to get it as clean and smooth as possible, also to challenge myself. I didn't really want to have to clean any of this up with filler, but you know, it's only the trunk area, so I'm happy with this so far. I'll get it cleaned up. Also, I picked up a lot of subscribers these last couple weeks, which is awesome. The channel started growing reasonably quickly, but just wanted to answer some of the questions I got. For a lot of you guys that are not familiar with the channel, I picked this up in July of 2019. I paid $2,800 for the car. I'm 35 years old. Yes, I am very much a rookie. I did have a project car that I worked on from 14 to 18 years old, but I didn't do a whole lot with it. I did some small work on it, but never really got anywhere with it. And then from 18 up to 34, I didn't do much of anything with vehicles. So a lot of this stuff, most of this stuff, I'm learning. And yes, I just started welding a month ago. What else is there? I do have a full-time job. My background is in multimedia, video production, graphic design. So editing and stuff for me, I can actually do that stuff fairly quickly. So, you know, getting a couple episodes up a week generally isn't too much of a problem for me if I can get the time into the garage to work. That's whenever I do most of the work on the car, is in the evenings, generally after my kids go to bed. I come out, work on the car, and I'll work on it for a couple hours, and then I'll go in and hit the computer and edit what I filmed for the night. And that's pretty much my process. If you have been watching my videos for a while and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It will really help. Like the video, share it if you feel like it. All that stuff will help the channel, which in turn will help me and this project. And yeah. And the goal for when I'm gonna have this done, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see how quickly my welding skills progress and see how quickly I can start doing a lot of the repairs on the car. But I think that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. I appreciate all of you. Always feel free to leave comments, give feedback, give suggestions in the comments. I listen to all that stuff. I have a lot to learn. Thank you to all the guys that have emailed me and to the guys that have emailed questions and asked questions and stuff. So many of you, I appreciate your enthusiasm for this project and what I'm doing, and I appreciate all you guys. I think that's everything for this episode, guys, so until the next one, take care.